Hello, and welcome to this edition of People in Transition. I'm your host, Bob Gerst. I've been hiring and mentoring executives, frontline employees, and job seekers for nearly 40 years through a host of transitions, some difficult, but most very good. This experience has given me a bird's eye view on a variety of trends, economies, industry disruptors, and transitions, big and small. It also brought me into contact with the thought leaders and decision makers you need to meet. Imagine knowing exactly what to do next and how to know it's time to make your big job change. We all know transitions can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. And it's even fun when you have actionable strategies and proven tactics to achieve the future you want. We'll share with you the tools and skills that can take your dreams to your next great job. So if change is on your horizon, you won't want to miss this discussion. Also, please subscribe to this podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. Kolby Goodman, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of People in Transition. I've been really looking forward to this discussion.
Bob, I appreciate you having me on.
Kolby, one of the signature questions that my listeners really enjoy is to find out just a little bit more about our guests. And to help us do that, what did you view that you would be someday when you were a child?
I definitely went through the cliche astronaut, football player, the things that have the high esteem and the notoriety. But I think the first time I really thought about what I wanted to do, what I wanted to create in the world, was being a special effects artist for the movies. I loved movies and cinema as a kid. Back when we'd go to physical bookstores, they'd always have making of books of the movies, everything from, I was really big into action movies as a kid. So the Batman series, things like Armageddon, these big blockbuster movies that had all this CGI and practical effects back then. And I really loved it. Even so much so that I would make little movies in my house with my dad's old VHS camcorder, towing a Matchbox car with a piece of fishing line, or trying to green screen something in my garage. And as I grew a little bit older, I kind of realized that I liked the practice of it when it was my own project. And when I would do editing jobs or help for classmates and friends who had other video projects in school, I didn't have my heart in it. It wasn't really that exciting to edit and to contribute to something that wasn't my own idea. And I think from there, I realized I needed to have ownership. I wanted to have control, for better and for worse. And so as I kind of grew up and grew out of that and went through a couple other phases of my career, found myself where I am today, where I've spent the last decade of my life and my career starting and developing and owning my own business, consulting, transitioning, and accelerating professionals how to take control of their own careers and advocate for themselves in the workplace.
So, Kolby, I know that your coaching, your consulting practice is to help position people as expert problem solvers.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean, and how does it have an impact in terms of finding your next job?
Too many people out there, Bob, are looking for work in terms of trying to be the most qualified or the most experienced or the most educated. And I quickly found in my own firsthand experience looking for traditional work in a previous life and helping my clients do it for the last 10 years, is that is a game that people rarely win. It's too easy to get one-upped by one more piece of software or one extra special skill or one more certificate or degree. And it puts the candidate at a disadvantage trying to be the most. And so what I transition my clients into thinking about is, instead of trying to be the most of all the things, be the best at solving the problem. Speak to the core of the concerns of the decision maker, which isn't simply just, I need somebody to do this job. Good leaders and good managers think about, I need somebody to solve these problems. And by positioning yourself as an expert problem solver, you are intrinsically different in your messaging than everybody else out there. And we get straight to the core of a decision maker's pain point, which is, I'm suffering because this problem, this issue, this missed opportunity is continuing to go unresolved, and it's costing me time, energy, frustration, money, and I will pay somebody an annual salary to take this off my plate.
And how do you find out what that problem is that they're experiencing so that you can show how you can solve it.
Yeah, so it comes in two ways. First is to look at what a company does, services, sells, supports. What is the core meaning and mission of an organization? And then cross-reference that with what the job description is marketing out there. Now, admittedly, this approach, selling yourself as a problem solver, has not been mainstream or caught up with when it comes to employers. They're still looking for somebody to check a box. And so as an advanced critical thinker and problem solver, it is up to you, the listener, to understand if this company with this mission and this forward trajectory is asking the person in this role to have X experience and Y responsibilities and Z education, what potential problems might be coming up that those characteristics, those skill sets can be applied to bring about great outcomes. So that's one way to do it, kind of doing some deductive reasoning, comparing the company and the job and how it's symbiotic. And also is just going out there and doing market research, talking to the people in these roles, in these organizations, and simply asking them, what are some problems, issues, frustrations, missed opportunities that you're encountering right now? What are your pain points in your job that, if could be taken care of, would make your life easier and the business better?
Kolby, I'd be interested in your insights on how you view the landscape of recruitment and how it has evolved, particularly in terms of what the employers are looking for in candidates kind of post-pandemic, and how does laid off individuals, how do they adapt to these changes in that process?
Post-pandemic and kind of post-COVID boom, so to speak, the injection of PPP and low interest rates, we're now coming into a place where money and spending are a lot more expensive. And how that's impacting job seekers and leaders is that nobody's any longer hiring a warm body. There was a time where if you could breathe and log on to Zoom and did a 7 minutes of work, you were hired. But nowadays, the strategic approach to hiring is no longer, can you do the job? Again, do you check the boxes? But can you come in and solve enough of the important problems to deliver qualifiable and quantifiable impact to the business? The good companies are no longer looking for those who are qualified, but they're looking for the right person to move the right business needles, to justify the investment in the individual.
And that ties back to your concept of being a problem solver.
Absolutely. I mean, coincidentally, this has been a way that I've coached for a long time, even before a boom and a bust. But I think that mindset puts a candidate in a much more favorable position because they're selling themselves as an asset to the organization, not simply just as somebody to come in and do a job, but as an investment, as if that company was going to buy a warehouse or a forklift or a brand new copier. If you can present yourself as an asset there to solve a problem and create a positive outcome, you make it very easy for the right decision makers to understand and appreciate why you over anybody else.
So, Kolby, let's say that I just found out that my position was eliminated and I'm laid off unexpectedly. What are the 3 or 4 first steps that you coach your clients and those new job seekers to take?
I think number one is to take some time, right? You have just experienced a trauma. Your livelihood, your identity, your habits, and your lifestyle have been very abruptly and I would argue violently taken away. Don't feel like you need to hit the ground running immediately to find new work. Actually, I advise against it. Because that's how burnout happens. Because you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of momentum in that moment. You're fired up by anger and resentment and opportunity. But the candle that burns, bright and hot burns fast. So take some time to separate yourself out. Give yourself permission to disconnect from this process and come back to it when you're more level-headed, when you've processed your emotions, and you're ready to do good, consistent work. So that'd be number one. Number two would be to look at your experience, your expertise, and your skill sets. Qualify and quantify those and understand based on that unique combination, well, again, what are those problems that you've been able to solve? Not the work you've been able to do, not the boxes you've been able to check, but how are you helping solve problems? How are you able to help make a company money, save a company money, reduce process time, or limit financial, legal, or market risk? Third, I would say start or find a community. Networking and building a network usually happens when it's too late. So I would encourage your listeners to go out there and become a partner, or even lead a community of other people experiencing the same thing you are. This does a couple things for you. It makes you stave off the isolation and the loneliness that happens in a job search, because it absolutely does. Even if you worked from home before, just the lack of that direct daily purpose is really shaking of the psyche. And lastly is, the old adage is a cliche for a reason. It is about who you know. And so the more that you can engage with the people that you've already connected with, already developed and deposited social credit with, you can then start withdrawing, asking for help, asking for favors. The more you do that as early as possible, the better, because that's where your dividends are going to pay off.
So you're touching on kind of networking, which it sounds like you view that as an important part of your job searching. What are the strategies that you would suggest a job seeker for building and leveraging their professional network?
The number one thing job seekers do incorrectly in their job search when it comes to networking is they completely forget about everybody that they know, and they feel like they have to actually go pursue and develop a whole new set of people in their network. Do not forget about the people that you already know. A lot of pushback I get from this here, Bob, is, well, Kolby, my network isn't involved in the industries or the specialties that I am. I totally get that. But the power of the network doesn't come from the one-to-one relationships. The power of network comes in those who are once removed. The analogy I always use is, let's say your entire network is made out of 5 people. The odds of somebody in that 5 that in their company has an opening that you are a great fit for and also has hiring power for that position is pretty slim. But where the magic comes in is looking at that once removed. So if all those 5 people also know only 5 people, you no longer have 5 people in the network, you have 25 people. And that's where the magic really happens. You can exponentially increase your opportunities by leveraging more people, even if you feel like they're completely disconnected from your industry or your specialty. And with platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and especially LinkedIn, we can peek into everybody else's address book and say, well, you may not be able to help me because we don't have the same technical background, but Jane Doe over at Microsoft. Could you give me an introduction?
Let's shift gears just a bit here and let's talk about skill development and upskilling. What advice do you have for a job seeker looking to enhance their skill set or to pursue additional training or certification to help make themselves more marketable during their search?
I think incorporating this into your daily routine as a job seeker is super important for multiple reasons. One would be because your job search should not take you 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And if it does, you're not doing it as effectively as you could, and you are on the fast track to burnout. Stop right now. But also, I encourage my clients and all job seekers out there to pursue interesting and fun challenges. So if there is a technology in your space that you kind of know but haven't mastered yet, that would be an ideal place for you to upskill. If there are soft skills that you're not really sure about or you feel like could take to the next level, that'd be another place. Right. But I think these daily consistent rituals of self-development, both soft skills and hard skills, are extremely important, not only for the marketability on the page. It helps you with familiarity in the room so that you can speak to the tactics, the tools, the shortcuts, the applicability of the knowledge to a decision maker. But also, too, it gives you a healthy diversion from the job search. When you can no longer click the next page on Indeed or you've reached out to 15 recruiters on LinkedIn that day, you're absolutely encouraged to hit the pause button on your search and go upskill until you feel full with that as well.
Let's say that after I'm laid off, I decide that I'm going to have a career change, a real pivot. So I used to be a finance person in real estate, and now I want to be a project manager in hospitality. What do you coach your clients? How do you suggest that they explore those new industries or new roles?
It goes back to what we started with here, Bob, in terms of figuring out what are the problems that need to be solved. At its core, a problem exists across all verticals, all industries. And it's your job then to showcase to a good manager why you're most applicable at solving that problem. Sometimes you have to help the decision maker zoom out a little bit, because the easy and the direct thing to do is to match A to A, B to B, C to C when it comes to industry, history, and experience. So as you go out there and look to make a pivot, it's your job to understand, what does this unique perspective, unique history allow me to see, do, or execute on in this new industry that somebody who's already embedded either already purely assumes, isn't willing to think outside the box, or maybe too set in their own ways from a previous employer that they become more of a liability than an asset to their new one.
You've kind of touched on this earlier, but I'm curious, as we think about personal brands, how important are personal branding in today's job market? And again, what are the 2 or 3 steps, strategies that a job seeker can use to establish and maintain a strong personal brand?
So I think understanding what your perspective is. For me, I am a father, a husband, a business owner, a coach, and I'm here to help bring together problem solvers, candidates and professionals, and problem havers, employers and leaders. That's my brand. All those things are intertwined. And so I think understanding what are all the circles and the bubbles of who you are and how you can best own that sliver of that Venn diagram where all of those overlap. There are the obvious things for branding, things like your LinkedIn profile, your resume, cover letter. I think the other big part of branding and ownership of your brand is to talk about it. I think if you can leverage these platforms, again, especially LinkedIn in a job search, to showcase your opinions, your ideas, share interesting articles or tidbits, people start to look at you differently. People start to give you the title of thought leader or expert, even though you're not creating anything new or revolutionary, but you're going out there and sharing it. And so I think a brand needs to be established, and then it also needs to be cultivated and managed. One more thing that I would encourage your listeners to do is to contribute to growing their brand and their notoriety in the right places by spending 5 or 10 minutes every day engaging, connecting, messaging, posting, and sharing, so that you can build some momentum and stay top of mind when somebody who is in desperate need of your expertise and your problem-solving abilities is starting to look for somebody just like you.
Kolby, how would you coach one of your clients that was recently laid off? How should they communicate the circumstances surrounding their layoff to a potential employee during the interview? And after they've gone through this pretty negative experience, how can you, as a job seeker, communicate that you're still someone that can add value, that you're not damaged goods?
I think that's an excellent question, because you're absolutely right, Bob. People come out of these situations and they feel broken. They feel less than. They feel like there's something wrong with them. I think it is first and foremost taking some time to process, again, the trauma and really come to a wholehearted understanding that it was ultimate bad luck and ill timing of why you find yourself where you're at. Nothing about your performance, nothing about who you are as a person or a human. For better or for worse, you were a cell in a spreadsheet. And while that feels unfair and inhuman, I think what it allows a candidate to do is to focus on what they can control and what they can't. And as they go forth to tell their story to their next employer, make it very matter of fact. I unfortunately was part of a reduction in force. While it was not an ideal situation, I'm really proud of what I did at that company in X, Y, and Z areas. And I'm looking to take my expertise in A, B, and C and help solve more problems related to 1, 2, and 3. And so you own it, you own the separation, you make it clear that you're doing your best not to allow it to impact you or to shake your psyche, so to speak. You're pointing to the things that you were proud about your experience there, and you're helping the decision maker understand, here's what I took away from that experience that's going to help you in the future.
How valuable do you think having a mentorship role with someone to help you in your job search? And what are the tips that you have for that job seeker in trying to find that mentorship or guidance?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Coincidentally, I think the biggest thing that frustrates those in the process, both as a mentor and a mentee, is the term. I would never encourage a client or somebody looking for support and guidance to ask if somebody can be their mentor. I think it's a very daunting title that is unclear and never ending. And I think it can get a lot of well-meaning leaders and experts to shy away. So mentorship comes in gathering the information and gathering the perspective to help you make better choices and strategize better. That can be individual people that you respect and admire. And that mentorship can come in an email, a LinkedIn message, a 10 or 15 minute phone or Zoom call. It can come from the people that you follow online that you have never met and may never ever meet in real life. What is their content doing for you? How can you contribute? How can you comment and maybe get an answer back? And also, too, we have this beautiful thing in America called the library that has the collective knowledge of humanity written down and at our fingertips so that we can intake and process and apply proven perspective and firsthand knowledge and tactics that we can apply to our daily life. So my mentors are Marcus Aurelius and millionaires and billionaires and those who have lived and died and lived again, right? So I don't never met these people. I never will meet these people, but I can take their words and their knowledge and use it to mentor myself and self-coach moving forward.
Does confidence matter in your job search? And if it does, and I don't have it, how can I get more of it?
Confidence absolutely matters. Right? You have to be confident in your ability to have an impact and do more than just the job. The frustrating thing about a job search is that person, that candidate is wearing so many more hats than they ever have been and have ever been used to. They have to be the product, they have to be the marketer, and they have to be the salesperson. And all three of those roles have to effectively partner together towards a common goal. And so if the product isn't clear about what it is and what it does and who for, the marketer can't market it, the salesperson can't sell. If the marketer is unclear about how to message the product stays in the box, the salesperson can't have any conversations. And if the salesperson is unsure, is unconfident, is unclear about how to connect with the customer to showcase value and impact the product, even though it's marketed really well, this whole thing collapses. Now, I think where a lot of job seekers misunderstand the term confidence is they mistake it for having to know everything all the time at a moment's notice. And confidence, I think, can also embody the exact opposite. I encourage my clients not to try to know everything, but at least to know how to ask the right questions, how to explain leveraging their own resources. Because if you can go out and you have the confidence to say, I don't know in an interview, but then have the courage and the gumption to say, but this is how I think I would figure that out, that's going to hold so much more weight with the right kind of leadership. That's going to sit with a good manager longer than a perfect rehearsed answer that somebody else might have given. And I think that's where confidence can be drawn from, is that you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. But if you have the confidence and the willingness and the ability to figure stuff out and be proud in that, you can open a lot of eyeballs and open a lot of doors for yourself that may otherwise have been closed for you.
I think that mental and emotional resilience is oftentimes tested during times of career transition. What advice do you have for maintaining a positive mindset and keeping that motivation throughout the job search process after you've been laid off?
I think the number one thing that job seekers struggle with is self-forgiveness. What I mean by that is they're told, be positive, like be encouraged, keep your chin up. And they know that's what they should be doing. But anytime they backslide into doubt, into stress, into anxiety, they tend to get really mad at themselves. And that only exacerbates the problem. And so I think kindness, forgiveness, gentleness to self are characteristics I would encourage every single job seeker to start to cultivate. Because that's where resilience is built. It's not trying to simply grind and barrel your way through problems, but to have a plan, get punched in the mouth, and figure out your next steps.
Kolby, can you share some of the interview horror stories and challenges that you've encountered in your decade-long experience?
Bob, I'm pretty biased. I love my clients, and I think they're overachieving in the best way possible. They're self-discovering, they're always pushing kind of people. And so the horror stories that I found primarily come from the side of the decision maker, the manager, who are ill-prepared for interviews, who has suspected and has been confirmed with me over the years that have forgotten they have an interview on their books until 10 minutes before the meeting starts and that Outlook message appears on their screen. Interviewers who are asking downright illegal or inappropriate questions, or managers who approach the conversation of an interview less like a gracious dance and more like brutal combat. And these things I welcome for my clients for a few reasons, as crazy as that sounds. One is that you want to know the true face of who you're going to be reporting to and working with. And if they're giving that to you within a few minutes or one interview, then you've dodged a massive bullet. But on the other side of it too is, as a job seeker, even one in active transition, you need to be putting yourself out there to find the right opportunity. And that includes the right kind of leadership. And so if it doesn't jive with you, if you don't feel comfortable, if you are getting a gut feeling that this is not an ideal situation for you, you should listen to that. And so those kind of horror stories I share with my clients openly, and I'm now trying to work with employers to skirt and help managers get out of their own way to build better rapport and connections with high quality talent.
Kolby, are there any books or other resources that you would recommend to your clients to help them in their job search?
A lot of what I recommend for reading is more about mindset and daily practice. One of the more recent books that I've come across that I've read twice in the last 3 months is a book called Master of Change. That has a name named Brad Stulberg. And it is an amazing and direct journey through accepting change, through understanding why we reject it as a human species, and direct practices and actions to take to weather storms. Because I think that, a job search and being unemployed is one of the toughest mental strives any person can go through. And I hope what a lot of people can take out of this process is their ability to face challenge and welcome it moving forward and not try to avoid it. So I really recommend this book to help those out there who feel like they're hopeless, that they're helpless, that they're not capable in this moment, because this book, I think, can really turn your mind around. Again, it's called Master of Change, Brad Stulberg. The other one I'd recommend is called The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay Steiner. And I really like this book because it helps you cultivate what I think is the most underappreciated but most important skill set any person, let alone any professional, can have, which is the art of asking good questions. And this book allows you to cultivate a habit of not jumping to conclusions, not jumping to give answers, but being comfortable leveraging your curiosity, giving away the status of being maybe the smartest person in the room, and allows you to develop a sense of inquisitiveness and understanding through asking really, really good questions. This is imperative when it comes to networking. It is highly valuable when it comes to interviewing. It's imperative when it comes to leadership. And it goes back to what we talked about before. You don't always have to know the answer. But if you can ask the right questions, you can get any answer you want.
Kolby, we covered so much great information and material here. If our listeners can only remember and implement 3 things from your coaching, what would those 3 things be?
Mental and emotional management and regulation in your job search is as, or if not more important than what your resume looks like and how you interview. Because if you don't have that mental and emotional resilience, if you're not working on yourself in those ways, you cannot show up wholly on the page or in the room. Secondly is do not go about this alone, whether it's with a partner, a friend, those who are employed or unemployed, a coach, and a consultant like you and I. This is a rough time in your life, and that's okay. The only way to make it rougher is to go about it all by yourself and stay in your own head and ruminate on your own thoughts that are probably not super helpful. So go out there, find a community, voice your concerns, get perspective, and take action. And lastly, Bob, I think the biggest thing I want your listeners to take away is that what I have found in my own life, in my own business, working with my own clients, is that we tend to really put an emphasis on intensity, volume, more. But the longer I live and the more people I get to work with, what I realize is that the trick to all this is not intensity, but consistency. As long as you are doing the right things on a regular basis, the momentum will build, the snowball will develop, and things will go well for you. The moment you think, I need to stop doing this is wrong, I should just quit, is probably a nanosecond before you're going to see results. So trust yourself and trust the process. And as long as you're being consistent, good things will happen.
Kolby, I can now see why your clients don't do it alone and engage you, because you have so many great experiences, thoughts, and wisdom that you share with them. So on behalf of all of my listeners, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for listening. We're working in unprecedented times. The purpose of these episodes is to give you the support and critical tools to adjust with the changing marketplace. I'll continue to introduce you to guests who have successfully survived their own obstacle course and can share useful information. If today's message was helpful to you, please share it on your social media. Your review and rating helps get this to more people. Also, if you have questions or podcast ideas for future conversations, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Change is constant. The more prepared you are for it, the better and easier the change will occur. Thank you again. This is your host, Bob Gerst. See you at our next episode.